We always say seat time is king. So sit on down and listen in to Motorsports Tech Talk with your hosts, Brian and Eric. Eric, how's it going?
Good, man. Coming back from break, so that's pretty hard to complain about, you know? How's
Well, I guess definitely nothing to complain about on break, but now complaining about being back at work.
yeah, that's true. Back to the old grind. Back to
Yeah.
the salt mines, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, it's I guess how was your break?
Mine. That's a whole another conversation in itself. It was good. It was heavy. A lot of activities.
Mm-hmm.
How was yours?
It's always it was good. It was good. Yeah, I just saw the parents and then mostly just kind of relaxed around the house the rest of the break. Got a little bit done in the shop as far as organizing stuff, but not really anything directly on the vehicles, unfortunately. But but I did recently, just today, I got the final piece of the puzzle ordered for my sim rig. I got my graphics card for my computer.
Dang, like it shipped?
I ordered it from Best Buy, and basically because of how the graphics cards are all out of stock everywhere in the entire world due to a combination of supply issues, cryptocurrency, and everyone building gaming PCs because we can't go outside. Basically, some stock came up on Best Buy. I got it, and then in order to claim it, basically they have to ship it to the store. I think it's trying to prevent scalpers from just buying a ton.
Sure.
They have to physically go to one location, and they're limited to one or something like that. So
yeah.
But anyway.
Well, for whatever it's worth, Ethereum is the only one that uses graphics cards.
Yes, and I know Ethereum is the one that's kind of booming right now. Well, I mean,
it's booming.
A couple of them are, but
yeah.
But anyway,
my coin wallet's okay.
I guess enough about crypto.
Yeah, enough of that.
but yeah. So this is a new season here. Season 2, we're calling it. It's a
new year,
new season,
new me, maybe.
Yeah, we're upgrading everything. I guess one thing we're upgrading is we now have some social medias, some socials networks.
We do.
We got an Instagram, at Motorsports Tech Talk. We have a Facebook page, Motorsports Tech Talk. It's all pretty straightforward.
Yeah, you should be able
easy
to find it. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so Instagram we'll be announcing the episodes releasing, maybe posting some side tidbits, some memes, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, shit posting all the memes.
Yeah.
But this is also, I think, our first real, not practice or trial run thingamajigger podcast where we are not in the same room.
Yes. Yeah, we're doing it remote, to be more social distanced and everything.
That's right. Really,
but,
it's just because you stink.
Yeah, and also the setup at my place, so the little coffee tables and everything, it's not the optimal setup.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's decent, but this way we can just do it after work. Maybe we can churn out some more of these. But yeah, if anybody's wondering why maybe something sounds a little different or whatever, that's probably why. So
yeah,
not in the same place.
So yeah, we're upgrading, going over the waves in order to bring this to you. So we got all the technology here, not just motorsports tech, but just tech. We're just high tech all around.
Yeah, real tech.
Yeah,
you can tell that by our crypto conversation we had. We're super into tech.
Yes, yes, very much so. So, but anyway, so yeah, season one, or sorry, season two, episode one. So this week, or at least for this episode, we're gonna talk tires.
I like it.
The
What are we talking about with tires, Scram? Brian?
You know, I thought we'd just kind of go over a very basic kind of overview of the different forces that we care about on the tire, and then from there expand into just going through everyone's favorite 200 treadwear tires, at least your budget enduro, some of your time attack classes, and obviously your track days as well. Usually 200 treadwear is kind of the go-to, or in a lot of cases mandated by the rules. So
Yep.
We've got some experience racing on a lot of different sets of them, as well as just doing a little research here and there, reading those grassroots motorsports tire test articles, that kind of stuff. And yeah, we'd like to just kind of give our opinions slash experience on with a lot of the tires, as well as talk about kind of some of the new ones coming out here really soon. There's kind of some new players in the market, so kind of give our initial thoughts on them, and yeah, our kind of our predictions on what's going to be the new go-to.
Okay. All right. Well, so I can talk about tires all day, and although we're not going to do it here, we could probably make 5 to 10 episodes specifically about tires, tire science. People get their doctorates in it. But what do you want to go over for like an overview?
Yeah, I guess just kind of a start. So I mean, we talked about camber last season.
Mm-hmm.
Go listen to that one. I believe it was episode 3, if you want to hear about camber. But we touched a little bit on some of the tire stuff there. But I mean, so I guess to just to form a basis here. I mean, usually when we're talking tires and the forces that we care about acting through them. So I mean, basically, the tire is the only thing contacting, or the only connection between the road and your vehicle. So very important.
Yeah, the most important, probably.
Yes, the most important. Yeah, and so it's reacting all of those forces and G forces through that tire. So mainly you can break it up simply into your lateral, which is your cornering forces, as well as and then your longitudinal, or your braking and acceleration. So as far as just talking about kind of different tires will have basically this different characteristic curve for lateral forces, which is lateral force versus slip angle, which is it's the angle of slip between the tire and the road. So when you add steering input, you're going to induce a slip angle, and then once the car kind of finds its new direction, then the slip angle will go back to 0 eventually. So kind of when you're once you're going to go through a slip angle, it's going to kind of equalize, and then eventually you'll go back to 0 once you're back onto the straight. So that curve is what kind of dictates how a tire, or at least it gives you, if you're able to see this data in real time, it would show you kind of why certain tires maybe feel a little more, I guess, kind of peaky. They have a lot of grip, and then all of a sudden it just falls off. And then other tires might be very forgiving, where they have a very large kind of island of peak grip.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, generally that's what you're going to find in those 200 treadwear tires, since they are street tires.
Right. Well, and although you can tune your elastomer for exactly what you're talking about, a lot of that comes down to construction, radial versus bias ply, and quite frankly, you only see that peaky type of tire either in specific racing applications, so I don't mean like the Toyo Bro tire you can go buy, but like what pro teams will get from Pirelli or Michelin, whoever is supplying the series tire. that same construction you can find other places in the world. So I'm not saying that's you can only find it in racing. Just at the limit of grip, really, is the only time you're going to see it in racing.
Mm-hmm.
That same construction is what they use for like retreads, so semi tires in the rear, or tires that they have on landing gear in airplanes. So just for durability and various reasons. But yeah, I guess I just wanted to bring up that although you can tune a tire for this, it should be noted that the construction, or really where the paths diverge, is really what's going to define that characteristic.
Okay. Yeah, and so, but yes, I mean, if you had billions of dollars and could get tire data for all your different tires, you'd be able to see you'd be able to compare kind of how their limit characteristics are, their peak lateral grip, all that kind of stuff. But of course, as more as club racers and track day goers and all that kind of stuff, obviously we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to kind of look for the one that kind of suits us best, gets us the best lap time, because ultimately the lap time is what kind of tells you what tire's working best for you. I mean,
yeah,
if you can isolate all other factors, that's it's a good way to find what tire works best for you. But because ultimately testing is always, if you can't do all the analytical things, which most of us can't, we don't have the tools, or we don't have the CFDs and the FEAs and all the fancy things and access to all these test facilities. At the end of the day, the easiest thing to do is just to go out and try it out.
Right. Well, and to that point, I mean, I absolutely agree, but I think it's worth noting that tire manufacturers have supercomputers devoted to trying to characterize their tire with a mathematical model. And at the end of the day, what does everyone use? Race teams, OEs, people with big budgets, they get tire data from a tire test facility, but that's just where they physically test the tire, right? So, and that's what they base most of their decisions off of. So, if you at home can just sign up to go to a track day and test the tire, obviously it's not the same. There's human error, especially when driving. It's not going to be consistent, but that'll tell you what works best for you just as well as any other thing you can get, honestly.
Yeah.
So, and honest, like, even if you had a grippy tire, but it's super peaky, maybe you can't drive that, right? You're not Lewis Hamilton or whoever. So, I just want to lay it on heavy that, again, seat time, but go out and try what works best for you. And what works best for you is, by definition, what works best for you, right? Your driving style. You may not be a superhero, right? But you and your car work best with X tire, and you can figure that out. So,
yep. Yeah. So, yeah, like we say, seat time is always important. So, I guess, but with that said, I guess the other parts of the characteristic of the tire I wanted to talk about is, so there's also the longitudinal component. So these can, certain tires can be maybe, kind of better. Like, you can have two tires that have the same lateral, force versus slip angle curve, but then have different longitudinal characteristics. So basically, maybe one, although they might be same in quartering, they can pull the same G's through like a skid pad, but when you go to brake, maybe another tire is going to be better. One tire is going to be better than another, basically. So,
yep. And that fore aft measurement is slip ratio.
Yes. Right. So basically, the same idea. It's kind of that instead of a kind of the tire slipping on an angle, now it's kind of a ratio of the kind of the RPM of the wheel, and then the RPM, I guess the speed of the surface of the tire, and then the actual speed of the wheel, I guess you could say. So that kind of slipping. So 100% slip ratio would be you're doing a burnout.
Yeah, I guess I'd be a little careful with that definition. I guess it's a ratio of like how the tire's acting at the front, where it meets the pavement to the rear.
Yeah.
I guess I only outline that because if you compare the tire to the wheel, you know, if your tire slips on the bead the whole time, you know, that would meet your definition of slip ratio. But nobody wants that. So
no. Yeah, no. Sorry, yeah, you're right. So, but yeah, so knowing those two things, and I guess one other thing I wanted to briefly talk about is load sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another thing that it's you really would need to get tire data in order to quantify it. But it's basically it's as you add more normal force to a tire. So as basically you add either vehicle weight, whether it's the car loading, you know, weight transfer in a corner,
mm-hmm.
or, you know, extra aero downforce, or just your car is getting heavier, or you know, you went from a light car to a heavy car. Having the more load sensitive a tire is, the more it'll basically, the grip will fall off as you increase the load, because it's kind of like a diminishing returns as far as like if you're adding a ton of downforce, eventually the tire is gonna, it's not gonna give you as much extra grip as the first, you know, 100 pounds of downforce as the last 100 pounds, you know,
yes.
when you have 2,000 pounds or something.
Yeah. So these tires will give you more grip with more vertical load, but it's less, as the gain in grip is less each time you add. You know, I guess I don't want to talk about like an integral, but like, you know, if you look at every 100 pounds you add, each time you add 100 pounds, you still get more grip. It's just less than last time.
Yes.
And I mean, so this is really what drives everything, honestly, right? This is why you want less weight in a car, because as you mentioned, you know, you load up a tire due to weight transfer in a corner. You know, the weight of the vehicle doesn't change, but now you're loading up the outside more than the inside, but you lose more on the inside than what you gain on the outside, right? That's exactly what this is saying. Yep. And this is the reason why aerodynamics exists, is because how do you get, we want that normal force, right? We want more grip out of the tire, but we don't want more weight, you know? So I guess this key, you know, this load sensitivity that you're talking about is really key for all vehicle decisions.
Yes.
Honestly, like this will cascade into every race car decision you'll make later. So
yeah. And then also it can I mean, it definitely can affect your tire decision. I mean, it's hard, it's definitely something hard to quantify, but it could just be, I mean, the easiest way to kind of, I guess, find it through testing would be to try two different downforce levels with two different tires, basically, and then find maybe the one's faster at the lower downforce level, but then when you crank it up to the high downforce level, maybe it's not as, basically the difference in lap time isn't as much as you were expecting or something. But ultimately, I mean, this is what kind of makes certain tires just better for certain applications. But and then it also dictates the pursuit of aero, the pursuit of lightweighting, and
And in case anybody's getting any crazy ideas, for what you said about testing, if I was trying to test or compare one tire to the next using two different aero loads, so same car, let's just say you have adjustable aero, so you don't really know exactly what it's doing, but you have two fixed positions, so everything's still going to be the same minus the tire, I would be looking at a skid pad for that. Just because there's so many variables, you know, going around a track, I think a skid pad's the best way to grassroots style measure that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, so but ultimately, like, kind of all these factors just kind of come together into making people basically through experience recommend certain tires, like at least on a grassroots level. Like
Yeah.
you could go on and do testing with your vehicle and figure out which one works best for you, but a good place to start is to see what other people are using.
Hmm.
um, so with that said, I thought we'd kind of go through all the kind of major contenders in the 200 treadwear category. And yeah, I mean, like we said, this is applicable to a lot of your budget enduros. Most of them are 200 treadwear limited. There's a couple many autocross classes, I believe.
Yep. Yeah.
And then some time attack classes as well, kind of your street classes. So yeah, I mean, all those guys, and the 200 treadwear category is kind of I think because of a lot of these rule sets demanding them, it's it's kind of like I think we're seeing kind of a tire war almost between all the manufacturers to come out with kind of the best stuff.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree, and it's kind of it's really interesting. It's kind of funny because that treadwear is self-appointed, the treadwear rating,
Yes.
so they all give it to themselves. So that's why sometimes you get these tires where you're like, that's not 200 treadwear, but it meets the rules, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, we can talk about that real quick. Like, my understanding is that they basically set treadwear based off of it's basically it's a wear rate over a certain number of miles, but a lot of times this is just driving in a normal condition. This isn't like racetrack pummeling the tire.
Hmm.
So yeah, maybe this tire can easily do 3,000 miles and do 1/16 of an inch of wear or whatever it is that they determine is their 200 treadwear level. But yeah, ultimately it doesn't really reflect into the conditions that you might be using it in an autocross or a race.
Hmm.
So if anything, I mean, treadwear can be somewhat, I think it's more useful to compare between tires within a brand, a single brand.
Hmm.
I mean, it just kind of delineates, kind of differentiates their, this tire is their more performance focused one. This one's their more all season, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, I think it's the treadwear rating isn't a good comparison if you actually care about on-road miles you're going to get out of a tire. It's not a good comparison between different manufacturers. But I don't know. Let's say a bunch of different rules say you need 180 treadwear or more, and all of a sudden you have a specific class of tire, then it's a reasonable thing to compare against because it's what you're allowed to have in that race series. So
yeah,
it's I don't know, Scrap. Brian, tell me tell me what you see with those tires. What you're looking
yeah,
at.
yeah. So like, I guess the one I always like to start with is one of my favorites is the good old Bridgestone RE71R.
It's a
It's
good
kind
one.
of it's the go-to, or at least it was over the last several years for autocrossers, and that's always that's kind of a lot of these tires are kind of separated into that kind of autocrosser focused tire versus track focused tire. Um, Basically meaning, since autocross is a lot lower speed and a lot shorter duration, a lot of times these autocross kind of marketed or focused tires are just a lot stickier, a lot softer,
Hmm.
and just ultimately a lot grippier. So
Well, and those
RE71,
I was just gonna say, I think those autocross ones are really focused on getting up to temperature faster.
that
So
too, that too. Yeah, that's very important. And when you're just you're doing a 30 to 50-second run or something, and you're
hmm
just sitting in line before that. So yeah, I mean, there's because of that, those tires tend to be as far as in a racing or in like an endurance racing situation, they tend to wear quite a bit faster. So RE71 is kind of that poster child of the tire that you want to run for that extra time, especially in endurance racing, but you're going to be probably changing them out a lot more often. In my experience in driving a couple different cars that use them, one was a front-wheel drive Altima. That one, it really depends on the track a lot of the times. Like a track like Pittsburgh is really tough on tires. It's very abrasive. A track like Mid-Ohio is it's a lot slipperier, so you don't usually wear the tires too much there. So it depends on track. I guess at last year at Daytona, we were running those tires and on this Altima, and I believe it went through a front, like basically we had to, halfway through a 14-hour, we had to change fronts, but I believe the rears last the whole time. So that was definitely one of the better tire wears, I guess, or wear rates I've experienced with RE71. But I've also seen some cars that can potentially burn them out, especially kind of heavier front wheel drive cars, or your heavier rear wheel drive cars can sometimes even burn them out in like 3-4 hours at least.
Sure.
One axle.
Well, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, and certainly if there's some demand for it, we can make more tire specific, tire sciencey posts later. But that just goes back into the exact same thing with load sensitivity, right? You're putting more weight in, getting less out. Effectively, you're losing efficiency, right?
Yeah.
All that energy needs to go into something. All that you're putting a lot of work into the tire, and it's going to turn into heat.
Yeah.
So
yes. Yeah, and that kind of talks to just the compounds of these tires. Some just, they can't really take as much heat, as others, and it can also be a function of tire sizing as well. That's, I guess, another thing to point out here. Some tires, like the Hankook RS4, have become really popular, not just because of their wear rate, but also the sizing. They come in the very very popular, at least for the endurance racing scene, the 245/15. So if what tire you want to choose can also be, it can be influenced on basically the wheel that you can fit, or the wheel and tire you can fit on your car, or basically or are willing to get, because you can go to a super wide 18-inch wheel and tire, but the price of those goes up quite fast.
Yeah, a lot. But that is an interesting note, because I think at some point, especially in I'll just call them crap can series, but the budget endurance racing series, maybe I think you'll reach a point where you have so little power that putting more tire on doesn't really help your lap time, but it might help that tire live a little longer.
Yes. Yeah, and that's definitely a very important consideration. Like, if you can only fit a 205 RE71 in your car, but you weigh 3,000 pounds, like, I think you're going to struggle to make that survive, or to justify using that. But if you can fit a 255 or even like 275 or something, then that's when it starts. It potentially can work really well. So I think that's one reason why I think some people will be like, oh man, these things wear out in like 2 hours, and then other people will be like, oh, I can make it go a whole 10-hour race or something like that. So sizing it properly is important for wear rate, at least. But yes, like there can be a point where if you're putting 355 wides on your Miata, it could, you could basically, because of the, I mean, sometimes it's hard to directly compare, but because I mean your wheel is going to be a lot heavier, your tire is going to be a lot heavier, so
more rolling resistance,
rolling resistance, unsprung mass, and then potentially, I mean, to fit those on a Miata, I imagine they're just sticking out, so that's also going to be a huge drag penalty.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so what size you can fit is also very important when choosing your tire. But But I guess the next one I kind of talked about a little bit is my other favorite, kind of my favorite budget tires, the good old Hankook Ventus RS4.
Oh, those seem to be very
Um,
popular.
yeah, especially in your budget endurance racing, it's it's it was a big upgrade over the RS3, and they found this the holy grail of basically making it wear less, but then it was faster than the RS3. So it was just kind of free speed in a way, because they also didn't really change prices. They're one of the more affordable tires.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, it blossomed into. I mean, we kind of talked about it in our episode 4 with some of the Champcar dramas, but like when new tires come out, like that can create some of that speed creep, and I think the RS4 was kind of responsible for that, because a lot of these teams, more budget oriented teams, were already running maybe a Hankook, and just once that tire came out, it was just very nice. I know one of the teams I raced with for a while, GWR, they were running the Maxxis tires, which also came in that nice 245/15 size, but the problem they were finding was they had to shave them, because basically it was when they had full tread, there was kind of hot spots on it that they were getting, and it would start to chunk, like basically complete chunks would come off of the tread, and greatly reduce the life of the tire, and also would start to feel not so good while driving it. So
Right.
it was faster than their old 205 width setup that they had, but they had the shaving it was kind of a pain. So once the RS4s came out, switched to those, and it was like, depending on the track, but it was immediately like it was a little bit faster. I think around a second, depending on the track, faster than the Maxxis VR1s. But then also the wear was just so much better,
Right.
and they didn't need to be shaved.
Yeah, the
So-
RS4s are pretty great. I know quite a few cars that can run them for the whole day, maybe even the whole weekend. If it's a 7+8 race with Champcar or whoever. Yeah, they're not as fast as the RE71 Rs, but they
Mhm.
come in more sizes, and they last way longer, and they still seem to be on the faster side of what's available for the 200 treadwear tires. So
Yeah.
they're a pretty common choice, and it's, kind of easy to see why they're decent.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not the best choice for, say, an autocrosser. That's for sure.
No.
They take a little while to get up to temperature, and I have found that they do heat cycle out if you kind of use them too many times. I mean, I imagine that's one of the few tires where I've had raced with teams that used them enough to see that, but a lot of tires will heat cycle out, but some not as much as others. Just quick example, the spec tire for NASA Spec Miata, which is the Toyo RR, they tend to really not heat cycle out, and potentially are better on high heat cycles on lower grip tracks. So, but that's something you're gonna have to figure out after running a tire for a long time. But it's definitely a consideration if you're trying to get the most bang for your buck.
Right.
I mean, for the RS4, I've seen, I think the Huggins Racing, they've won the VR24 at least twice now, running the RS4 basically the whole entire race. I believe just one set. I'm not 100%, but I believe just one set. I think maybe even R-Bank too in their Saab ran basically one set. Maybe they had to change some fronts, but yeah, you can make them last really long time if you got your sizing right, and you're not kind of overdriving them. One thing I found, and honestly with most tires, both RE71 and the RS4, I found you start to overdrive them, they kind of grease up for a lap or two, and you basically need to slow down to get them to recover.
Yeah.
maybe the RE71's a little more susceptible to that than the RS4. But yeah, so that, yeah, RS4 is just a great choice for kind of that longer durability, but still great performance as far as endurance racing goes.
Sure.
And yeah, so which would probably make it a pretty good budget track day tire too to have some fun on.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, for those cars that kind of do dual duty, it seems like it'd be a pretty good option.
Yeah. And so I guess again, another tire we kind of touched on there was the Maxxis. So the Maxxis, its party piece was that 245/15 size, at least in the kind of endurance racing world, and I'm sure a couple time attack classes and everything, but kind of as soon as Hankook came out with theirs, it was kind of eclipsed. It tends to wear, not just if you can prevent it from chunking, which we've run it on our Lemons Volvo, and it didn't chunk, but it did wear a lot faster when it didn't chunk. So and it didn't seem to have, if anything, it has less performance, less time than the RS4. So, but still potentially a pretty, it's still an okay budget option, as far as it's more on the side of that little less weight. It's more of your kind of track day / racing tire side than your autocross side.
Okay.
But definitely not one of my favorites.
Sure. I mean, that based off what you said, that's pretty understandable.
But yeah, so.
But I think you've on the GWR car that you already mentioned, since we've already compared a few tires on that car, you drove with Rival S's, right?
Yes, yeah. So another one that comes in that magical 245/15. It's kind of the theme here. It's the tire we ran. So I guess for those of you who don't know, the GWR car, it's Greener Watson Racing. They actually haven't had their car out since I think the Road America race over a year ago. But basically it's a BMW E30, and it's running a 245 wide tire and has a bunch of aero on it. So it's the stock M20 engine, but lots of aero, a very very grip focused car, versus straight line speed, but it still does okay. And then the other car that I have done a lot of events with is the Lemons Volvo we have, that sometimes we do with Champcar as well, and that one also runs that same 245 size. So kind of a lot of my experience is on those tires that come in that size. But I also have I've also, I guess, kind of been able to gather some info on the others. But I guess the last one kind of on the list that I've used recently was that Rival S. So the Rival S is a little tricky. It's one of those tires that can be, I know it's popular among certain autocrossing classes. I think it tends to be more popular on the kind of heavier weight vehicles in some of those classes, just because it comes in very very wide sizes. We talked about it a little bit last season on episode 4 with the Good, Bad, and Ugly Corvettes. It's the tire they run.
How big was that one?
It was a good old 335.
Yeah,
front
buddy.
and rear. So, but in the 245 size, we first on the GWR car tried it out at Watkins Glen, and it was just like the magic bullet there. It was, I believe we hit a sustained 1.7 G's on the tire. I mean, that car is set up for Watkins Glen, and that tire in that weather, which is in May, so it's a little cooler. It's not super hot. It was beautiful. It was probably the fastest that car's ever been. And wear was okay. I think, if I remember correctly, it's a 7+7. I think we might have had to change fronts halfway through, but more as a precaution.
Okay. So,
but
just as a quick interjection, How did you find the wear of the other tires, specifically at Watkins Glen? Because that's a track that's kind of known to be hard on tires, especially that left outside tire. How did it compare specifically at Watkins Glen?
Yeah, so I mean, previously, I believe they had run the RS4 the previous year, and I didn't drive that year, but well, from what I remember, crewing with them, I believe it could go that full 7 hours, no problem. I think probably I believe they put on a fresh set just to make sure they didn't have to change in the middle,
Okay.
and then just relegated those ones to test or track day duty. But yeah, it was definitely the wear weight was higher in those conditions, but the grip definitely was more as well. I forget how much. I think our fast lap was we went 1.5 seconds or so faster than the previous year, so it was a pretty good jump. There were some other changes to the car too that helped that, but the biggest change was the tires, and basically that first day at Watkins Glen we were able to get the overall win there, and I definitely, we only won by I think like 20 seconds or so, so I definitely say the tire was what we needed there.
Yeah.
But on the other end, we then tried to use that tire at the VIR 24, same car, basically same setup, that same year, and it was very hot, 90 degrees. It's August, VIR,
Yeah.
Virginia, just very hot,
Yep.
humid, sunny, and it did not like those conditions. I think our fastest lap, I think we went a little bit slower.
Okay.
But the biggest thing was the car drove much. It's just, for whatever reason, it seemed to overheat the rears a bit more than we've ever seen before, because the car tended to be very understeery at the limit, which made it great for endurance racing, very easy to handle. But in this case, it was the first time I ever had oversteer problems basically with that car,
Yeah.
and it was enough for one of the drivers to put it in the wall during the warm-up session on the morning
Oof.
of the race. That wasn't fun. We got it back out there, but it kind of led to some problems down the road. But
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely didn't want to work as well there, which is kind of what you expect from this is kind of more the Rival S, at least, is more of your kind of autocross focused tire, whereas the Rival non-S is more of your, at least it seemed to be more towards your endurance and just kind of track day tire or just street tire. But in the right conditions on the right track surface, it at least at Watkins Glen, it was very good. It just definitely in those hotter conditions it fell short. So it just goes to show that one tire isn't going to be the perfect one wherever you go.
Right. Yeah. In the professional, heavy quotes on professional, but in the professional racing world, that's not an option, right? So you change your setup, but it's cool that you can change your tire instead. With these endurance series, that's a huge. I mean, maybe it shouldn't be used as a tuning tool, but I would use it as that. And it's awesome, right? I think it's really cool that you can change tires, like manufacturers and between these races, because you can find like racing SRO and IMSA, you can find what the Pirelli's a little better at and what the Michelin's better at, but you don't really have an option, right, at different tracks.
Yeah. So yeah, some of those big money LMP1 and GTLM, they get to come up with different compounds for different tracks and even conditions and everything. But yeah, I'm sure they experiment with that. But yeah, most of your other classes, GT4, GT3, they're just stuck with what they get.
Yeah. So moral of the story is, in this case, some of your endurance racing cars have more tuning capability with tires than GT3 cars.
Pros.
So take that one to the bank.
Yeah. So, so yeah, I mean, but that's kind of, I guess. So the other tire I had experience with, it was kind of the pre 245 days, was the Dunlop Dureza Z2. Now Z2, it
Yeah,
was
boy.
that was kind of your RS4, I guess, of that era. It had very good grip, not as much as the RE71, but pretty good, especially in endurance racing. But the wear was much better, and that was kind of the go-to tire during that time when at least when GWR was running the 205. That was kind of the go-to tire, and I also really liked it too, because there's one thing I haven't really touched on too much, was kind of this was also kind of how the tire feels, at least in steering. So the
Yes.
RE71 specifically always has very good steering feedback. So it just does, it makes it feel, it communicates kind of back with you a little more. It doesn't really have, I'd say sometimes the RS4 and definitely the Arrival S has kind of a dead zone when you, once you exceed its peak, it kind of doesn't give you any more feedback. So you can kind of keep cranking up your steering angle, and you're not getting any more grip, but you kind of can't tell that it's not telling you that it's done. I don't know. It's just RE71 gives you great feedback, and it makes it easier to drive, and it does seem to have kind of better turn in, which can kind of be related to, which we didn't really talk about, but basically it's the linear portion of the slip angle versus lateral force, the called the cornering stiffness of the tire, but
Hmm.
it's kind of the initial portion of the slip angle versus lateral force graph. But that tire, just from my experience, seems to have kind of more of that cornering stiffness, so it tends to turn in a little bit better, and then it kind of communicates a little more with you when you're at the limit, I found.
Yeah. So you think the Star
And
Spec 2s had a comparable steering feel with the RE71s?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say so. They felt nearly as good, just less grip. But of course, you can't buy that tire anymore, because now there's the Z3, which
Right.
I think um, I think definitely seemed to be a step back for them. I think they went in to try to go for more of that autocross market, because I mean, autocrossers, there's a lot of them, and you
They
know, people,
they
and a
ball
lot of
out on
people,
tires sometimes.
they like, yeah. So it's a good market to go for sure. I'd say it's probably larger than the kind of endurance racing and track day market. And yeah, they went more for grip, but they didn't get there. No one wants to drive the tire that isn't the fastest, but then also doesn't have its kind of special niche of, like the RS4 of wearing really nicely. So it doesn't wear as well as, say, an RS4, but then it just doesn't have that really nice grip that the RE71 has.
Hmm.
So I haven't driven on the Z3, but I've talked to some people that have tried to run it, and they did not like it. They were not fans, and because of that, I hardly ever see them when I go to Champcar races and whatnot.
Right.
I really don't see them on cars.
I mean, honestly, that's it's a shame to, at least to me, right? Because I had the Z2s on the, uh, track focus, but whatever, street a bowl Miata, right? Um,
hmm
and the Z2s were, I thought, pretty much what you said, right? They hit that mark pretty well. The steering feel was fantastic. Um, Compared to new tires, they didn't have the grip, but they wore really nice. And you felt like you could drive like a hero because you could feel the aluminum grip just all the time. Um,
hmm
so it's a shame that they sort of took a step back with the Z3. You know.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, it could just be whatever they were kind of going for. Maybe they were focusing more on just kind of streetability too. That's one thing. Like when you look at the tire rack reviews, they'll talk about, like, how loud a tire is. I think the RE71 is probably the worst and by their metrics for like tire noise or road noise and all that stuff. But it's like for a race car, it's not even a
Yeah, you don't care.
you don't care. So maybe they went for more streetability and everything. So and that can sell a lot of tires too. Maybe I don't think people don't wear through them like autocrossers do, or like people endurance racing. But yeah, so it just seemed to kind of miss the mark. But one tire that didn't miss the mark though, kind of recent, I think a year or two, I think 2 years ago it came out, or at least was re-released, but was the Yokohama Advan AO52. So I think it was originally a 180 treadwear. I think it was banned in a lot of classes, and maybe in autocross, and they updated it, added like another 1/32 of an inch to the treadwear or something, and then called it 200, or
there you go,
and re-released it as all brand new. But based on what I've seen from some guys using it in Champcar, as well as the tire rack and Grassroots Motorsports kind of tire testing stuff, potentially can be faster than the RE71, and depending on your car and everything, of course. But it's been, I think I've seen some of the top autocrossers start to adopt it in those 200 treadwear classes, and I've seen it, like I said, a few times in Champcar. I remember racing against I can't remember. It was basically, we were at Road America running that Altima that I drove a few times, and we were racing against a Maxima and the JSK Maxima, and they were running the AO52s the first day, and they definitely had the pace on us. I believe they're somewhat local to the track, so they know that place like the back of their hand, and whereas a lot of us in the Altima were kind of either new or at least new to that car, and they were just running circles around us until they unfortunately ran out of brakes. But the second day, I believe they switched to a different tire. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was just an RS4, but they were considerably slower the second day, just making that switch. And I've seen some teams run the AO52, and it seems to be very fast, but potentially even quicker wearing than the RE71, which is what you'd expect. With more grip kind of comes more wear most of the time.
Sure.
So it's definitely, if you want a ton of grip, it's definitely a good place to look. One thing to note that I based on the tire rack results, and I think some watching some guys run it in Champcar in the rain, is it's not as good in the rain as the RE71, and that's kind of a whole nother thing that we can, you can get into too, is when you're racing in the rain, some of these tires tend to be so much better. Like, basically, I mean, from what I've seen, RE71 seems to be the best, and as long as there's not too much standing water where you need to switch to kind of a 300 or maybe even 400 treadwear if it's like a complete downpour, I found RE71 definitely seems to be the best.
I was blown away by how awful RS4s are in the rain.
Oh yeah, they're very bad. Definitely stay away from those. I think Rival S's were similar. I mean, so some of that's going to be that tread pattern design. So
those types,
it can be
sort of
making sure that you're running a newer tire that has has all the tread on it. But yeah, even just running a brand new RS4 in the rain, it just can't build up enough heat to kind of get working. Where
no.
RE71 with its autocross kind of design nature to it, it can still get the heat in those low temperature, low tire temperature, low ambient temperature.
I mean, absolutely. So. I wasn't even sure it was raining at first. Like, you saw like maybe 2 droplets on the windshield, could have been water from maybe another source. I don't know. It was cooling off, but as soon as that happened, like, I locked those things up going to the next corner, Like just totally not ready for it. It really lost all ability in the wet.
Yeah.
So that is something to consider, I guess.
Yeah, so even though the Yokohamas are grippier in the dry conditions, and in some cases it doesn't seem like it translates as well to the wet. Part of it could be their tread pattern is very aggressive in that it looks very much like a slick almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's for whatever reason it doesn't seem to translate in that case. But definitely, I guess kind of one of the up and comers. It's very pricey, so I haven't seen really many teams try it. It's for some teams it's been sometimes they'll use it because maybe the RS4 is out of stock or something like that, and that's what they'd normally run. They want to try something new, but I haven't seen too many teams really try it yet. It does seem to be wearing even faster, so it can be yeah, definitely something to consider there, but definitely fast. Definitely another fast one. And then I guess another one I guess that's kind of new as of end of last year, end of 2019, was the new Falcon, the new RT660. Now the previous Falcon, the 615, I believe, 615K, or I think there's two different versions of it through its kind of lifespan, where
Yeah.
the pattern was the same but the compound changed a little bit. I think they kind of softened it up for autocross and maybe made it a little worse, but the previous compound it was another good budget option.
It's
The
a
grip seemed
drift
to be
bro
good.
option, be honest.
That too. It's drift bro as well as your budget. Like it's even cheaper than the RS4.
Yeah.
It does come in one size that always interested me, and that was the 275/17. It's the only one that really comes in that I've seen. But that one's just a lot more expensive than the 255, so it's a little harder to swallow that one. But yeah, I mean, but recently they came out with the tire, the RT660, and based on what I've seen so far, I mean, Grassroots Motorsports tested it, and they found it could potentially be basically right on par with the RE71. I think some of the Time Attack guys have also used it and to some success. So it looks like the wear though is still similar to the RE71. So, but I think so then kind of its party piece, I guess, is its cost. It's cheaper than the RE71, as well as its sizing. It comes in, I believe they have that 245. So kind of one thing I always wished for was a RE71 and 245, and potentially the new Falcon can potentially get you there. So that's one tire I'd really like to try out. I've been hearing okay things. I think the one thing that's not super apparent to me yet is the wear, is how they're wearing. So yeah, I'm hoping to maybe be able to use that at some point this season. But yeah, that's definitely one of the ones to look out for. I guess another one to look out for that's pretty new is the new Nankang CR1. I haven't seen many people running this one yet. I think the availability was pretty low. I think maybe COVID affected it, but notably I saw Jackie Ding of Grid Life fame running it on his Time Attack Mark V Supra. I remember hearing there was some controversy there because it appeared that he was kind of the only one able to get it. I believe he's sponsored by Nankang, and they directly kind of sold it to him, or he himself is a supplier, and that he was able to get a set kind of before anyone else. And I think there was maybe a little drama there, but I haven't.
Some hubbub.
I mean, I believe he had some success with it, but other than that, I haven't really seen really anyone else run it, especially in endurance racing. So, that could be one to kind of look out for in the more track day endurance racing, maybe even autocross. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll see. I never heard too much about their. I never heard too much feedback about their 100 treadwear tire.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean the tires are priced pretty good. So it could be a good option. I know I saw a little bit, I think, on their 100, and maybe on they had like a 160. It seemed to perform okay, but but not really in a rate, more like a track day kind of testing scenario. So, but potentially, I mean, could be another one to look out for. It seems to be more biased on that grippier, higher wearing side potentially, but yeah, that's one maybe I'd like to try to compare it to the others. But yeah, it's kind of another one, kind of a new player, somewhat to at least the U.S. market and also the 200 treadwear area. So
yeah,
it's always good seeing a new manufacturer come in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of these. I guess one quick, I've never run it, but the Federal 595 RS Pros, I believe. I think I've seen some teams try to run those. It doesn't seem like maybe definitely you're very, very, that's definitely on the complete, that's your bookend of the budget side of this, like kind of budget to expensive tire slash. And it seemed to also be similarly on the low grip side of the spectrum of these tires. So
yeah,
but I think you can get them for like less than $100 a tire. So I mean, for someone starting out or maybe just wanting something for track days, maybe I think maybe it's popular with the drift scene too, potentially, but doesn't seem to be one I would recommend for yeah, like endurance racing or even autocross or really even track days, unless you're just looking for a cheap tire that has pretty good grip. I think the wear is also, from what I've heard, maybe not the best if you're trying to push it to keep up with some of those faster tires. So, but yeah, it's another option out there, definitely on the budget side.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess maybe if you're not super serious, whether it's a track day that you're not trying to win, or you and your buddies are just taking your Champcar out for the first time, that might be a good option for you. Is that what it sounds like?
Yeah. Yeah, so and then I guess another new tire, I believe around, I think it came out sometime in 2020 maybe, or at least was the first time I saw it, is the Cooper RS3R. I think the only time I've really seen it used is the Round 3 racing team. They raced in Champcar, and I think now they switched over to WRL, but I think they've been running it all year. And I think they shared some feedback on it, and basically they were saying that they felt like the grip is comparable to an RE71 with wear comparable to RS4. Now, if that's true, that sounds like my new favorite tire, but
right.
But I haven't seen too many other people try it out yet. So maybe next year or this season, more people might try it out. But if that's true, I mean that would be another great option to look at. I'm not sure about pricing for it. I think it's not on the crazy side. But if they last as long as they say they are, then potentially could be a good kind of price to performance option. So that's another one I'd kind of like to try. And then I guess the last one, kind of new news recently, is the new Kumo Exta V730. So this is kind of the successor to. It's very similar to the Viper ACR tire that uh, I think some classes, at least in autocross, were allowed to use, and then it was swiftly banned.
Yeah.
And then some time attack cars are running them, but it was. I mean, it was designed specifically for the Viper ACR. And that car has a pretty high aero, a pretty good aero package, and
Yeah, I mean
set a lot.
that's why they needed that tire specifically, was to support that vertical load. Because that aero would just blow apart another tire.
Yeah, and I mean, even I think it even still blew apart those tires. I remember watching it was like a YouTube documentary, something on them trying to get the ring, the Nürburgring record, and they had many blowouts during those attempts. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, the car was like 1,800 pounds of downforce at its top speed, right?
Yeah, and Nürburgring is not a forgiving track as far as the bumpiness and the curbs and everything. So, so yeah, I mean, it was designed specifically for that car, and then some people started to find that it was, kind of, some might call it kind of a cheater tire. It's kind of what the RE71 and AO52s are kind of considered. That range is like that kind of cheater tire. It seems too good to be 200 treadwear, basically. But yeah, this seems to be the V730. It's potentially the kind of successor to that, and then available in kind of more common sizes. Like basically the Viper tire was only available really in those Viper sizes, which I think was like a 295 front and a 335 rear. So maybe even a 355 rear. It was big tires. So. So maybe not every car can really fit them nicely. So potentially here we have more sizes available, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see that one. That one might be again on the super high wear but super high grip side. But again, another one to look out for. I'll be keeping my eyes peeled for maybe some people running those. The price looks good too, pretty cheap. So, but yeah, that'll be exciting. So. I guess one last thing that's not exciting is I heard some rumors. We talk so much about the RE71 here. I heard some rumors about potentially the RE71 maybe kind of going away, being discontinued. I believe last year I saw in Japan they released the RE71 RS, or I think that was what it was called, and there was a lot of hype that potentially that would be, the new king, the successor to the old king. But it doesn't appear that, at least yet, there's really any plans to bring it to the U.S. So,
well, that's disappointing.
So yeah, if they don't bring the new one to the U.S. and they stop making the old one, then unfortunately could remove one of my favorite tires. So I don't know, maybe everyone should just go stock up on them right now.
Yeah, do that.
But yeah, so that's a lot of tires, and that's just one treadwear.
Yeah.
But we went through quite a few there.
Yeah, we did. And that still doesn't answer the question of, maybe getting a higher treadwear tire to last longer, not make a stop. Does that ever benefit anybody? I assume not.
Yeah.
Based off the lap time drop. But still, just to point out that we're only looking at one treadwear of tire.
Yeah, because you got those kind of high performance summer tires like the 260s. I believe I've heard some teams running those in kind of your more downpour type conditions. But yeah, I'd be curious to see if someone tried like kind of like a Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 4S, whatever. There's so many names so long.
They've got some Super Sports and some PS4Ss and some Cup 2s and.
Yeah. I know those are definitely on the very expensive side, and even if they were my understanding is not they're not any faster and potentially can wear a bit more when you're pushing them that hard, like in a racing situation. So, but yeah, I mean, I I always assume that kind of if a tire is readily available, kind of outside of your maybe Nankangs that people might not know about, or basically if the tire's not on tire, if the tire is on tire rack and no one's trying it in some autocross class or in endurance racing, just just buying it just to try it out to see if it's faster. I just assume kind of the ones you see the most commonly are probably kind of the ones to go for.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, sometime I mean, a lot of these series race all around the calendar, so you could find yourself in kind of snowy weathers. I mean, there's a couple races I've seen in the last year or two that, and there's one at Road America, one at Barber.
Road Atlanta,
that one was
right?
crazy. Road Atlanta. I haven't gotten to go to any of the snow races, but I've seen them, and maybe you could have a special kind of low ambient, almost snowing kind of tire. But yeah, as far as I've seen, my experience, especially in the kind of endurance racing sector, mostly I've seen kind of the RE71, the RS4. That seems to be the most popular. And then I'm starting to see maybe some more Falcons, a couple Yokohamas. I guess one we didn't talk about was the Toyo R1R. My understanding is it's again just kind of it's just not grippy enough and doesn't have really good wear, and it's really expensive. But I mean, whew, lots of tires. I mean, we could go on forever on tires, especially even on like the theory.
Yeah, especially on the technical
too.
side. I don't think we need to do that here and now, but if anybody, we might do it whether you want it or not. But if anybody does really want to hear about that, definitely let us know. I mean, a tire makes up about 40% of your suspension, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, realistically, all your suspension is going through the tire, which is an elastomer. It probably plays individually the biggest effect on your car's handling. So if you do want to hear more about tires, definitely reach out and we can do that.
Yeah.
And there's interesting aspects of tire construction. Drop a little free nugget of information for you is lots of tires will generate their peak coefficient of friction statically at -1 to -2 degrees of camber. So we had that, what was it, episode 3, season 1, talking about camber. And we were talking about the concept of trying to keep the tire perpendicular with the ground to get more contact. But based off what I just said with generating more friction at static negative camber, maybe you want your nominal to be, -1.5 degrees. Who knows? Who knows what you could learn if we do more tire podcasts.
Yeah, so there's of course, and we haven't even talked about like pressures or a lot of other
some of the biggest
parts
things
of it. So
really.
So yeah, I mean, yeah. So if you want to reach out, or if you just have any questions, or you just want to say hi, like you said, we have a Instagram now. We should be linking it in the kind of description of this episode. Maybe I think I need to update the previous ones too to add it there. But yeah, we have the Instagram, the Facebook, and if you have any suggestions, you can also email us at motorsportstechtalk@gmail.com. You can also, without doing anything, the easiest way for us to see what you want to hear about is just listening in. We can see the numbers, so we're kind of keeping tally of which episodes seem to be more popular than others. So
Yeah, so look for another Arrow episode coming soon.
yeah, that one so far was, even with our minuscule numbers, was noticeably higher. So yeah, as the easiest way to support us is just keep listening, and we can figure out what you guys like, and we'll try to keep bringing good info out. We just enjoy talking. Really, we just talk too much.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
I mean, I talk to myself, and if I see Brian, we just talk about cars the whole time. And
yeah,
I
at
mean,
this
we're
point,
doing
I'm
it
almost
anyway.
like, at this point, I almost don't want to talk to you unless we're recording it, because then I don't know.
It just seems like a waste of time because we'll talk
Yeah,
about it and record it later.
exactly.
It's all right.
So
We can be podcast acquaintances. That's fine.
yeah, I'll only talk to you if it's being recorded. So
Yep.
but yeah, so that should do it for this week's more kind of tech focused episode. I think we'll get into more of the racing news and stuff as the season kind of starts to wind up again. But yeah, so that's this new season kicked off, and so we hope you stick with us here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hope this was helpful, and I mean, large part of our audience are you guys. Autocross or track day or budget endurance race. So hopefully this helps pretty much everyone, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we appreciate you if you listen this long. Again, we thank you for sticking with us, and yeah, we're hoping to put out episodes basically at a minimum every week, and maybe we'll throw in some bonus ones every once in a while. But yeah, we're hoping to be at least weekly on this. So stay tuned. We'll keep putting these out. So if you guys keep listening, we'll keep making them. So
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Bye.